Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you all for coming. And this is before the beginning of term, so I'm really grateful that you've all made the time to come along and see some of these wonderful manuscripts that I've had the pleasure of working with for the last couple of months. So as Chris mentioned, I'm here on a Bodleian visiting fellowship focusing on religious change in Southeast Asia in the early modern period. So that's the historical question or theme that I'm looking at. How can we see changes in people's religious identity, belief, and practices through the manuscript collections that are held in the Bodleian? And what's remarkable is that this is a period of quite rapid change in the history of Southeast Asia as a whole, from a period of predominance of Hinduism and Mahayana Buddhism for almost 1,000 years. We have the couple of centuries of really rapid and profound change in the way that people viewed religion, and importantly, a great amount of change of religious identity in Indonesia, a major shift towards Islam and Christianity in the East, Philippines, Catholicization, and in mainland Southeast Asia, the rise of Theravada Buddhism replacing Hinduism. And so the problem or the challenge that we have with Southeast Asia is that we don't have anywhere near the primary source record that we have for many other parts of the world. So if you were to compare with the European Reformation, we have nowhere close to the amount of fine-grained data, which means we have to find other ways and means of trying to piece together what was going on. And one of the ways that I find really fruitful is to look through the manuscript culture. So we have, at the same time as this change in religious perspective, also a lot of innovation and diversification in manuscript culture, which is why they look so diverse here, the manuscripts that I've put together. So let's look at them sort of one by one. We have the first three items here are palm leaf manuscripts. You might be familiar with this sort of format from many Indian cultures, or South Asian cultures also share this tradition of palm leaf manuscript writing. What we have in the first two cases are Hindu texts. So the first text here, a fairly late medieval Hindu text from West Java. It's in the Javanese language, but it's using scripts that are derived, as is the case with most Southeast Asian traditional scripts, ultimately derived from Brahmi in India. This manuscript is sort of, I guess, a learned academic perspective on Hindu philosophy. It's, as you see from the quotation, it's rejecting the sort of popular mythological which it sees as sort of trivial and superficial, in favor of this quite sophisticated, deep analysis of Hindu thought and theology. So this is indicating, I think, a sort of a reaction against some of the popularization of Hindu belief in this period. We have the second one, which is another palm leaf manuscript, which is more of a fictional story. But what's interesting about both of these is that they are targeted towards a specific kind of institution and community. That is, these organized groups of hermitages and ascetics throughout Java. What we see is that there seems to be a shift institutionally from a sort of state-focused clergy or politically backed monastic society to one in which these more autonomous rural hermitages have more presence in the historical record. We always have to be a little bit wary about saying, well, just because something appears in the record, does that mean it's first appeared? Probably not, right? Probably these things have been going on for a while, but nevertheless, it's remarkable that in the 15th century, these sorts of texts focused on renunciate communities, not so focused on the state, in fact, often rejecting the state or at least distancing from the state, become really significant in the record. But around the same time, you already have the palm leaf format being used for new kinds of story. For example, this is a story based on legends of the Prophet's family, in particular Hamza. And here we have the adoption of Javanese script. Interestingly, we get innovations in the script around this time as well. So if you compare the three different scripts, even if you're not familiar with how to read them, you can tell that they're really quite distinct. They're related. So here we've got this new set of stories, Islamic stories being introduced. We have a new script, but still maintaining the old palm leaf format. And here we've got the sort of adaptation of the Islamic stories into Javanese language. So these three are from Java. This one is from Sumatra, South Sumatra, so close to Java as well, just in Lampung. And here we have another adaptation of a Muslim set of texts. So here, this is a Sufi story or Sufi sort of account of the creation of the universe, a particular tradition within Sufism that focuses on Muhammad and the light of Muhammad as this creative agent in the universe. But what's remarkable about this is that it's using this, what is now a very rare concertina format. So the only place where this kind of manuscript is now well known is the Batak Highlands in North Sumatra, but there's some hints in the record that maybe this was much more common in the past. And so this is sort of an extinct or increasingly extinct format, which this is an exceptionally old example of. This is the oldest by far manuscript of this type from South Sumatra, and we can see that the script as well related, but still yet again different. So 4 different scripts in 4 different manuscripts, but all from around the same region and all around the same time. So those 4 on that side of the table are a variety of different materials that use local or localized scripts of Indian origin. These 2 look like Arabic scripts because they use the Arabic writing system, but both of them have been adapted for the Malay language. So they're using the Arabic script in order to write Malay, which became the standard method from the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. So whereas these in Java and South Sumatra, the old traditional scripts remain standard, in particularly the Malay Peninsula and parts of coastal Sumatra, these Arab-derived scripts became what was used, and you can see here there's also a change of format. So you've got a shift to the codex format, shift to reading right to left rather than left to right, and so both of these are popular Malay adaptations of well-known Indian Ocean Islamic tales. One, the Jutinama, the Persian stories of the wise parrot, and this one, interestingly, is the Ramayana. So it's an Islamic adaptation or a Malay adaptation of the Ramayana, and you'll see from the quote that there are some interesting things that happen when the Ramayana characters are being put into a context in which Allah is God, in which the Prophet Adam plays an important role. And there's an attempt here to sort of integrate this obviously Hindu story into an Islamic sensibility. So those are the 2, I guess, final manuscripts. And then here, I wanted to share as well 2 European books. These are both written by people who were the first Dutch and English expeditions to Indonesia, and they both pay close attention to the religious changes that are happening. So this is an outsider's perspective, but nevertheless they give some sense of the effects of a change that is already taking place. How is it that, and they show fairly different perspectives on how Islam is coming in. So the Edmund Scott, the English factor in Banten, emphasizes the fact that Islam is a religion of the elites. Only the top people really understand it, and most of the general population are still, doing their traditional stuff, praying to gods, etc. Which, of course, he terms as praying to devils to make sure that they don't harm them. Whereas Lodewijk, the Dutch sailor, is more aware of the importance of Islam throughout the coastal regions, but he does say, well, in the interior, they're still heathens. So interesting comparisons between these 2 perspectives, neither obviously complete, still very impressionistic, but nevertheless not showing how dynamic that situation still is. Finally, this one I couldn't not show. This is a very grand letter from the Sultan of Aceh, so one of the major powers in Indonesia, in the archipelago at that time, at the very northern tip of Sumatra, to James I, discussing and in fact giving instructions about where he could and could not trade. So the part of the story that hasn't been talked about yet is trade and politics. This is about both. There's remarkably little in terms of religious, and that's religious sort of content, And that's possibly a sort of diplomatic thing, understanding that James is Christian, Sultan is Muslim, and so they emphasize what they have in common, which is that they're both kings and they both want each other to do well, but also quite firmly setting boundaries about don't trade with others, just trade with me. Only come to my port. I'll give you a lot of pepper, and I can guarantee that you'll be safe. So there's an element of the orientation of these kings towards trade is a big part of the story as well, which we don't have time to get into. But why is it that it's these port cities, it's these places that are most engaged with sort of globalization at that time, which are the ones to most wholeheartedly commit to this kind of more Islamicate form of writing, more willing to accept Islam as a state religion or certainly an elite religion, whereas those guys over there, the kind of the rural communities, the hermitages, still remain fairly tenaciously attached to their old traditions. So that's sort of the range of things that I've been looking at. But if you've got any questions or comments or anything, please feel free, and thanks very much again.